Welcome to The Pulse. I'm Marcel. Today's video is about a topic that I'd honestly rather not get into, but I feel obligated to do so, which is the relationship between NMN and potentially fighting back COVID and also the symptoms of the vaccine. I did get vaccinated last year, and I took a lot of heat for it and actually removed that part of my first video using YouTube's editor after the fact because it was distracting from the overall message. So it inspired enough comments, some of them really angry, to the point where YouTube just automatically removed them, that I thought it was counterproductive for the overall message, as I said. But also, I didn't want people thinking I was removing those comments because I only removed 2 comments out of over 1,000 comments. One of them was just flat out spam from a product I knew nothing about. And the other one included unsubstantiated information that really had no backing or no scientific proof. So I didn't think it was right to have that just kind of laying out there, or even to respond to it. It's really not my place to respond to every scientific argument out there. But that's it. I let everything lay to the point where a lot of people who went out and got NMN, resveratrol, started getting good results, they're reluctant to come out and comment openly because they saw so much negativity that, they just sort of felt like, why should I even bother? So it's a shame that more people don't want to share their experiences. However, many people have, and there are more and more comments. And again, a lot of it's on the Facebook group, NAD Booster Club, also linked in the description below. So I encourage you, if you want to find out comments from people who have taken the supplements or asked questions, again, go there. It's a good place to start. NMN. Started taking it late July. This coincided with around the time I got my first 2 vaccines, one early June, one in late July. So right around that time, started taking NMN. I was dragging a bit and I got Biontech Pfizer, mostly because it's developed here locally. It also was the most talked about vaccine at the time and still is. It was developed here locally in Mainz, which I'll get more into in a minute. But just to give you the storyline, I was kind of fatigued after that first for a week or so. And then the second one again, immediately after taking NMN, it pulled me right out of that fatigue, which I thought was kind of interesting in the timing. So it was like just a few days later after that second shot. But that was it. I didn't get another shot after that right away and didn't plan to, hoped I didn't have to. Several months went by. I haven't had any allergy symptoms, as I mentioned in another video about that topic. I haven't even had a cold or a flu. I had 2 days where I felt like I was about to get sick, and I just increased the amount of NMN and resveratrol for those couple days, and it just kicked its butt. It just disappeared. So I was getting, every year I've lived in Germany, I've been back 5.5 years. Every year I would get sick 4 to 5 times a year, and it would completely knock me out for a week. Now I'm over 5 months or about 5 months back on NMN and had nothing, not even the slightest really symptoms. So found that pretty interesting. And also no allergy symptoms, no COVID. So what happened? A couple weeks ago, my neighbor, now a lot of people work in the medical field that live around me. There's doctors, nurses. There's just a lot of them living around here. And there's also a really big science community here. And Biontech is based here as well. University does a lot of scientific and medical research here as well in Mainz. So it's a really scientifically rich or medically rich area. A lot of pharmaceutical companies as well in the area. So when I got my information, started getting information and made my ultimate decision about getting the first vaccine, it wasn't because the government in the US had an opinion, or because Fauci had an opinion, or because the media was pushing an opinion. It was because I was hearing from people, first or second hand, from the local community where they developed the vaccine. And they were hopeful months before it was approved, months. They said, this is going to work. They feel really positive that this is going to help. And if you look at the countries that really followed their instructions on the vaccine, like Israel, It has worked splendidly well, including the boosters. The problem is Germany kept, and they continue to do this, and the EU wouldn't take the advice of the company developing the vaccines. So, or any of the companies, they kept saying, well, they had to pick a side. A friend of mine told me once, Germany is so afraid of doing the wrong thing that they never do the right thing. So this is how you get this, paralyzation of their decision-making process and analysis paralysis, if you will. And they're stuck in the mud, and they can't, and they oftentimes react way too late when it's an emergency situation. And then you end up with people getting even more upset than they would be otherwise. Again, you wouldn't know if they'd done everything right. There'd be still people would be upset because they wouldn't know how bad it could have gotten. But now we're literally seeing how bad it can get. The numbers are exploding here in Europe and in France especially, but that they're our neighbor, and Germany's numbers are going way, way up very, very fast as this Omicron variant is spreading like wildfire. And you're seeing it also in the US. So I think it's really important to kind of think about ways you can mitigate some of the symptoms. And for me, I can't think of a better way than NMN, resveratrol, TMG, this regimen, this core regimen that we've been taking, many of us, based on the research of David Sinclair, certainly seems to be. And now I've also not just spoken with a local community about this topic, but also other Facebook group administrators and people really close to the community of NMN. And it really does seem to us that there have been fewer cases of flat out COVID, full-on COVID, if you will, but also less severe cases from people taking NMN. Now, I know that's anecdotal and unscientific, but we're not going to get the science until years and years, if not decades later. We're just, at this point, what we do know very recently, and you should Google this, I'll put this in the description, is that a recent scientific study performed on mice and humans showed that NMN does lengthen the telomere length. So that's a hallmark of aging. And if we're able with NMN to turn back some of these hallmarks of aging, as described by Dr. Sinclair, maybe it makes sense that if the elderly are the people most prone to get severe cases, are most in danger of suffering from COVID-19, if you're able to reduce your biological age, that you can offset some of those symptoms potentially. And that's what, at least anecdotally, seems to be the case. Now, for me, I haven't had any symptoms of anything, so it's easy for me to talk about the arguments. However, a couple weeks ago, I was kind of convinced by my neighbor who saw this surge of Omicron coming. She works at a pharmacy here, and she said, I can get you and your wife in on Saturday. There's a doctor that comes. I just put your names on the list. We didn't cut in line or anything. There was just open slots still. And so we had our appointments for a month from now. But they said, well, it's been 5 months since you got your shots, so a little even longer for my wife. Why don't you guys come and get your booster now, and then you'll be safer. Now, I want to talk more about vaccine versus virus, because this is also really valid to discuss. And I have a lot of information that came from doctors and even a dentist who has over 1,000 patients who dealt with this very directly, even some of his employees getting sick from both, by the way. We decided to go ahead and get in line and get the booster shot a month earlier than our doctor was going to give it to us. And in retrospect, I think maybe we jumped the gun a little bit, but now with the real surge of Omicron coming on, I'm starting to have second thoughts. Even from yesterday to today, the numbers just skyrocketed again. So maybe we did the right thing. Bottom line is, my wife got sick right after taking the booster. Sinus symptoms, sore throat, just discomfort, achiness. And I actually had a bit of a setback in that I got fatigued. Didn't get any cold flu symptoms whatsoever. Was still able, I played 2 tennis tournaments in the last 2 weeks, so I'm still able to exercise and play tennis. But I definitely was fighting more than I've been lately. And continuing doing my distance running at a high speed, just finding myself struggling more than I remember. So I would say I'm about 30% fatigued. And it definitely came on immediately after getting the booster shot. So there is definitely an argument there for the booster. Whether I felt like Superman going in. I literally ran from the car to the pharmacy to go get this to meet the doctor, and I just felt invincible. And I thought to myself, who cares? Booster shot. It's not going to stop me because I'm taking NMN. I'm feeling fantastic. I'm exercising like I haven't in decades. And what could this do? Well, and the fact is it slowed me down. Now, I think I'm back to about 80, 85% today. I'm feeling more energy. I'm feeling better. I'm feeling less fatigued today. But the first 10 days, I was worn down. I was slower. I was actually napping once or twice a day at times. Not every day, but at times. So I was definitely feeling drained, a little more like my prior NMN self, but nowhere near as bad. I have to say that. The community here locally is really in tune with the patients of sufferers of COVID, but also people who had negative adverse reactions to the vaccine itself. Now, my dentist, who like I said, has seen a lot of people, has collected a lot of information, actually had a nurse have a heart condition come on immediately after her first or second shot. Don't remember exactly which one it was. Biontech. Then he had another nurse get sick who wasn't vaccinated. So he had both. Overall, he has almost as many adverse reaction cases of his patients from the vaccine as from the virus, okay? But the virus were overall more severe. So he is still a proponent, knowing what he knows and seeing what he's seen really, really close up. And he's still a proponent of the vaccine, but not if you're a high-risk person. If you have a compromised immunity or, various other symptoms that they do suggest you be a little more careful about it. This is sort of his position on it. So where I stand is not, I wouldn't call myself pro-vaccine. I would call myself very frustrated with this virus. And frankly, again, just for the sake of being direct, and maybe this will give you a little more insight to where I'm coming from, I don't trust the government. I don't trust the official announcements. I just don't trust the media on this. There are too many conflicting interests involved. They're trying to spin this, look like they're doing the right thing. They're more interested in that than they are getting the information out there. Just get us the information. I think people would be more trusting of the science if it was unfiltered. Just get us the information and we'll take it from there. Thank you very much. Instead of trying to force us to do things, I think just giving us the information and empowering us, you'll see a lot more people respond to the science and the data. But that's just not how it's been handled. They think we're not smart enough to handle the facts and the information. And it's really quite insulting. Another thing that I find quite insulting is trying to pretend that this virus didn't come from a lab. I think it's the most plausible explanation. The fact that they have a lab in Wuhan province where the virus came from to begin with, that develops these viruses, these types of viruses come from there, just makes a lot of sense. And gain of function is a term that I think you should look up because it's the only explanation that I've heard that describes why this virus mutates so quickly and adapts so quickly. It's due to gain of function development research in a lab. Then it seems like they're not being forthright with that information, very secretive, a lot of cover up. Again, give us the information, trust us with the information. They seem to trust us with even less information out of China. So too secretive for me. Basically I think they're at fault for this. So if you want to push blame on something, don't deny the virus. Like we know it exists. We know but we know there was a Holocaust. We know we landed on the moon, and we know there's a COVID-19 virus. I mean, these things are indisputable scientifically. So I think it's just a complete waste of time to just deny they exist. People have died that have denied they exist. It's a shame. It's sad. So, but I also don't believe that we should say the vaccine is harmless. I really believe this is dangerous. This is unfair, and people could have pre-existing conditions, or maybe there needs to be a more realistic, holistic strategy towards ensuring that people don't exercise right after the vaccine, but exercise before it, by all means. Eat healthier, take vitamin D, C, B12, supplement in some cases. I think we should be more open-minded to things that boost our immunity, and we should be more aggressive, just as they are and were to develop these vaccines. Why aren't we being more aggressive to develop natural supplements that also help our immunities to this? And I think there needs to be a more holistic approach overall. This is our strategy. If our family gets sick from COVID, we're going to all take NMN, including the kids. So that's just something we discuss. We've seen enough from myself and the circle of people that post around me and report back, close friends and otherwise. And there is, granted, inconclusive evidence out there, but still evidence suggesting that NMN and NR, for that matter, any boosters help your immunity and help you fight back viruses overall, but such as COVID-19. So we've sort of seen enough and experienced enough to say, my wife currently doesn't take, by the way, she doesn't take the supplements. She doesn't take NMN. She's considering it. She's younger than me, so she is considering it, watching how I do, and sort of saying, okay, you're doing really well. And she's definitely considering it. But then again, she has gotten sick over the past 6 months, not just from the shot, but a couple other times as well from cold and flu symptoms. I completely have not. So she's seen enough to where she said, okay, if I end up getting diagnosed with COVID, I'm going to take the NMN. So take that for what it's worth. Understand maybe a little more where I'm coming from on this topic, that I also don't trust the governments and I also don't trust the media, the way they disseminate this information and talk out of both sides of their mouths often about masks and about mandates and about different topics concerning the virus and the vaccine. So, but I do trust doctors, dentists, pharmacy workers, people that I've talked to locally that have seen things firsthand, and that's where I took the recommendation. I probably did, in my view, the right thing, but maybe I would have waited a little longer had I known I was going to start feeling fatigue. Hard to say. I can just tell you, I do feel like I fought it back better thanks to NMN, and that I will get 100% back to where I was and keep building on what I was building on. Gonna be back next week. Leave some comments. I know they're going to be somewhat mixed and controversial today, but next week I'm going to do a live video. I'm going to invite some people to be present and comment live, but I'm also going to comment. I'm going to respond to comments from other videos, including the big first video that I did, Feeling Younger, Taking Two Things. I'm going to respond to a lot of those comments in different categories because there were a lot of similar themes of certain comments. So I'm going to kind of group those together and respond to the themes of certain comments from groups of people. So thanks again for watching, and I look forward to hearing from you guys. And until next time, take care.